Hi Frederick, how are you doing?
Hi Rajiv. I'm doing very well. What about you?
So far so good, awake, alive
All right,
so far.
that's good to hear.
Yeah, lovely to have you on this season. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation and joining the force.
Pleasure, Rajiv.
Before we get started and talk on this very small, thin, yet a very, very powerful book, uh, let me have the honor of introducing you to the audience. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are going to be sitting when you listen to the guest of the day. All of you were part of season one of Leaders and Libraries, and you heard 33 global guests coming and talking on 22 powerful books. Season two, we have 40 guests talking on 40 exclusive books. That's massive. We have yet another guest for the day, Mr. Frederick Correa. I use Mr., but I would remove the word Mr. and just call him Dr. Frederick. And I'm so happy to call him this because when I invited him for this event, he was not a doctor but a Mr. And now, as he's coming for this event, he's doctor. So congratulations on this feat. Is a huge effort, Frederick. We are so proud to have another doctorate in our fraternity. So thank you so much for doing that and adding value to the society. He is a senior associate vice president HR with Darashaw, an author, a keynote speaker, speaks on interesting topics like employability, career progression, preparing young minds for winning in life. A lot of topics that he talks about. And my interaction with him in the last two, three occasions clearly tells me that a man of tremendous passion and wants to give back to society is what drives Frederick crazily. Any one of you who can connect with him on the LinkedIn and seek for help, I can tell you he will be all open to help you with anything. So, young leaders, please reach him on LinkedIn. And Frederick, I'm making the announcement without your permission. Thank you for giving me
No,
the
no,
permission,
absolutely,
certainly there.
absolutely.
He is India's 50 Best HR Leaders Award in 2021 from White Page International. It's featured on Forbes. He is also one of the top HR professionals of the year 2020 by a body called X4 Management Summit. I've not heard that, but that's an interesting space. Now, beyond all these accolades that I'm talking about, and he's also in the process of finishing the role of an author, and something surprising would be coming up. Beyond all this, I'm so excited to have him today because he's also a crazy book lover like I am. So thank you so much, Frederick, for accepting the invitation and joining the force. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here, Rajiv.
Superb, superb. Thank you. And we're going to talk on this very interesting book. So before we get started and delve into a couple of topics that the author is talking about, let me give the first question to you. So tell me, how early did books happen in your life? How young were you? A boy or a college boy or an executive? How was it? When was it?
Oh, it's a very interesting story because I was as away from books as I could be up until the age of 13, 14. And people would love novels and people would love, reading Enid Blyton and, the Hardy Boys, etc. I read none of those. I was never a reader of such books, your books on fiction. Then something strange happened
Hmm.
when my dad's an educationalist, and he used to do a lot of reading. And the kind of books he read were Burke Hedges, you know Anthony Robbins, etc. So he used to
Wow.
share stories with me. And what I saw when the opportunity did present itself, and when I would share these stories, people would start viewing me very differently.
Hmm.
At the age of 13, 14, when people would read fiction books, I started reading self-help books.
Wow.
And because it was all about, at that point of time, sounding smart, right?
Hmm.
But I found myself in this amazing journey, which took me to being the youth ambassador for the country. I won an essay writing competition. My writing is fairly good, so I've won quite a few awards in writing, and
Lovely.
quite a few national competitions. It was in one of these competitions when I was in Agra, and that was a holiday I got, and I was
Hmm.
participating in. Uh, in fact, I wasn't participating, to be very honest. I was over there, and there was this debate being held by an NGO.
Hmm.
And had a pass, had nothing much to do. You're in Agra. You either visit the Taj Mahal,
Mm.
and you roam around here and there. There's not much to do.
Yeah.
So I did go and attend that event. And of course, the NGO who had organized the essay writing competition had organized that event. So, it was also an obligation to go and spend some time.
Mm.
So I went over there. The topic was fairly good. I was the youngest, of course. I was what, 14, and they were all senior folks over there.
Mm.
Various other NGOs. There's this region network of NGOs, about 130 odd NGOs. And in a debate, there's always a for the motion, against the motion, and when they're doing
Correct.
up the scores, it's open to the floor. So I found the topic pretty interesting. I went up there, shared my views, shared what I had to, and uh, surprisingly, after the debate was over and I was just grabbing some
Mm.
tea, quite a few folks approached me and they said, "You know what? You speak very well. You
Mm.
come across in a very mature manner for a 14-year-old,
Mm.
and we would like." Someone like you to be able to connect with the youth at that point in time. A lot of these NGOs were working on HIV awareness,
Okay.
reproductive rights. And at that time, of course, talking about this today also is a taboo in India. Of course, people are a lot more open, but I'm talking of 20 years back.
Right. Right.
And if you have an uncle come and tell you about something, or talk about these kind of topics, you kind of get uncomfortable. But if there's
Yeah.
someone of the same age who
Yeah.
sounds a little bit more wise, who is equipped with the right information,
Mm.
perhaps you're able to connect with people better, especially when
True.
at that point of time it was a taboo, and you're
Mm.
able to get the job done. And
Correct.
that's where my journey with books started. Because if I was to be able to, of course, there's a lot of skill which I started
Mm.
working with them, and they did bestow upon me. I started working with the United Nations. I was invited to New York. I started working with CEDA, written a few articles there. I was invited to ICAP Japan. So I went and I was trained by the best in the world. Fortunately, my communication was good in terms of English as
Mm-hmm.
well as other regional languages. So I can speak Bengali
Right.
very well. I can speak Hindi very well. To an extent, if you know these three languages, you can play about
True.
in any other region. So going, learning abroad, coming back, and training tens of thousands of people,
Mm.
tens of thousands of youth, and that's where my journey began. And
Wonderful.
if you're going to be able to contribute to them, you need to first uh, not only have the right skill set but be able to add value.
Mm.
And at that age, nobody is going to be reading these books,
Correct.
right? They're not going to be getting this gyan from anywhere.
Yeah.
That is, I think, that is what drove me. That is what
Mm.
created that passion. And then slowly I just fell in love with these books. So people
Mm.
talk about self-help books being dry, and you know
Yeah.
it's meant for a very targeted audience, or a small book of or a small pool of audience. I think it's fantastic, the kind of learnings you can take, and it totally depends on the reader and how he beholds what stories or what
I
ideas are
agree.
being presented
I agree.
presented to him. And it is there where that cause, that desire to contribute to society, the desire to share knowledge started. And then in my career journey, and then a lot of things happened. I did my PhD, and 3 years down in my PhD, I published my first article. And the idea of that PhD, and my subject was employability studies, and how to bridge the gap between
Mm.
the educational institutes, academic institutes, and what corporate requires. I
Mm.
said that I'm going to be doing so much research, but
Mm.
it's a complete waste of academic energy because nobody's going to read it.
Mm.
It is with that idea that I said, let's take these learnings, let's take some philosophy, let's
Mm.
put some mirch masala, bring it together, make it thin and concise, just like Molly's the Catalyst,
Mm.
because and present it to the youth. And because the idea is to
Beautiful.
take that knowledge, to take that research, to take those simple steps,
True.
share that wisdom with everyone in the most simplest and most appealing form possible.
Correct.
So that's how my love of books drove me to do various things in life, and of course, finally to become an author.
Author. Beautiful. Fantastic. I was just wondering, 14 years when honestly people would be in, you very rightly said the famous fives and hardy boys of the world, and they may probably some of them who would want to show themselves as wiser would have moved to a Jeffrey Archer maximum or not even a Robert Ludlum actually. And there is Frederick, a boy standing amidst men and becoming a youth ambassador. I think it was you were lucky to be able to get that kind of a fantastic platform, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think God has been very kind.
Super. I mean, what a thrust it would have given you compared to your fraternity boys and girls of that age, isn't it? It's very
Oh, absolutely.
envious.
If you, I think that was one of the career defining or life changing moments for me,
Hmm.
because if you go and ask my teachers of school, before I was, before I
Right.
passed standard 10,
Hmm.
they would think of me of this, simple, sweet, studious, quiet boy. They
Hmm.
wouldn't expect me to be as extrovertish and as passionate
Absolutely.
or able to be the kind of speaker I am today.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So lovely to have you on this show. Yeah. It's such a lovely journey you're talking about because I'm able to imagine, how that opportunity would have just molded you as a human being that you are today, right? And today, anything and everything that drives you is how can I be of value to the society? How can I be of value to the communities? What primarily drives you, right? I think 14 years is the moldable age where it kind of shaped you and
Correct.
gave you a very different perspective to life itself in a very young age, right? I can completely imagine that. Super. So tell me when the journey started so early and then you went on to your corporate life and today you've got so many years of work behind you. How did books play a role in shaping you as a leader? Tell us a little about that.
Okay. Okay. So for moving to helping people, to
Hmm.
moving to guiding people, and
Hmm.
that's what the transition was from the youth ambassador to being a
Right.
leader in the corporate space.
Right.
And a lot of these lessons, now understand, there's no better way. There's no better way to give lessons than
Hmm.
storytelling, and
Hmm.
storytelling is the most powerful form of
Hmm.
teaching someone. So
Absolutely.
if you're able to explain something in the most nicest way, through a
Hmm.
story, through philosophy, through books, and
Hmm.
if somebody likes it and you say, you know what, this is what it is, if you like it, yeah, why don't you grab this book? So in where I sit, I normally have a bunch of books. So
Hmm.
when my colleagues do ask me for certain things, I
Hmm.
will share a bit of it, and I'll say, you know what, now I would like you to read this and come back to me and we have a discussion,
Beautiful.
because
Beautiful.
it's got to be enriching for me
It
also, right?
should be. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, I
Plus,
want you to think about it.
you would get into the habit of reading as well.
Absolutely. So,
Hmm.
so a lot of these books, your transaction analysis, etc. When we are
Hmm.
having discussions, and when people want to understand, why he spoke to me that way,
Hmm.
how should I deal with it, and then you give them a small handout and say, why don't you read this and let's have a discussion tomorrow evening.
Right. Right.
It also helps settle them. It also helps them to introspect. If people come to you with a problem,
Hmm.
I tell them, come to me with what you think is a solution and let's work to make it better.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Right, and and,
Make
and
them
this
think, right?
and this approach pretty much and that's coming to the catalyst and the
Hmm.
role a good boss can play,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So this is one of the lessons also I learned from.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I can, when you say them, tell them that you go think and come back and let's have a discussion. You're only empowering them to think, right? Not transferring your thought process onto their head.
Correct.
Years
See,
back, I
there's something you can learn because different people have different perspectives, and you
yeah,
may not have thought about this perspective, and he
yeah,
may bring something totally different to the conversation, and it may just get you thinking, what you thought was good could be better.
absolutely. And they would participate more because the thought has come from their head and they feel that we have been talking about this and now we are delivering it for the organization.
And also ownership comes in because they think it's their idea which is
Absolutely,
being implemented.
absolutely, absolutely. You pulled it out of my mouth because there was one very powerful quotation on leadership that I read many years back. It said, people love to be part of a world that they think they have created.
Absolutely.
I think it's
Absolutely.
it's powerful. So beautiful, beautiful. So that journey started, and you've read a lot of books over years, and you're an author yourself. What made you pick up this book, Catalyst by Chandramouli Venkatesan? Unfortunately, he's not amidst us today.
Yes, yes.
So on this platform, I would also want to, along with you, share our grief of having lost him. A great man. I had one opportunity to have a chat with him, but after that, we couldn't. But a great book. So why this book?
uh, I'll tell you, I've done a lot of and I've read, right, a lot of self-help books, a lot of books which management books, a lot of corporate books,
Hmm.
which tend to help you and put you in a particular direction. What Molly did is he put all of that aside. He said, you know what, let's have a conversation about
Mm.
careers. This is what I have learned in my career. It's very simple. This is what I've seen, and I have this much experience. This is my take, and I think, you
Mm.
know, based on what multiple authors have said in the past, these are the few things I have taken away. They're yet simple formulas.
Mm.
If you implement it, you will be
Mm.
successful.
Mm.
It's just so simple. It's just so
Absolutely.
easy. It's just so short, and it's yet so inspiring
Mm. Mm. And applicable.
and applicable and applicable.
Beautiful.
Absolutely, I've used a lot. I use, in fact, I recommend, a lot of B school students, or
Yes,
people in their early careers, that this is an absolute must read.
I agree. I agree. It's got tools that you can just straight away pick up and apply, and you'll see the
Absolutely. And
benefits.
it's simple. And to come to think of it, it's not rocket science. It is
Yeah,
something that you know about. It just shows you how to put it into practice,
perfect, perfect.
or that small ingredient which was missing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So let's talk about a couple of things that he's talking in this particular book, right? I'm going to ask you the first one. So he says the need for a catalyst, and he says this experience for higher productivity or for career or for life, catalyst is very, very important. Now, all of us know the meaning of the word catalyst from a very chemistry perspective. It speeds up any reaction, or it enables a reaction. From
Hmm.
a leadership perspective or from a personal growth perspective, what is your understanding of this word catalyst? And how should young leaders interpret this?
See, the way I look at it, uh, your catalyst, and a lot of people tell you, and what do you need to be successful? You need a
Mm,
job you love.
mm,
You need to have some skills
mm,
to do that job.
mm.
Put in some street smarts, conversation smarts, and you think that's the ingredient for success? That's what people think, right?
Mm,
And they
mm,
think, that you alone are responsible for your success, and that's what a lot of people tell you, and they
mm,
want you to believe, which is true to a large extent. It's true, I'm not denying that. But
mm.
what people tend to leave out are the roles which other factors can play and other people can play,
Beautiful, beautiful.
right? For example, your supervisor,
Mm,
right? Now, for example, now I will share this. A young artist,
mm.
a budding artist, can go and work under, say an expert for 5 years, right?
Okay,
Now, in this 5 years, what may so happen? A lot of his work will get branded as that artist's, right?
okay,
It can be frustrating, right? Because
possible.
I'm doing the work, and he's taking the credit,
Mm,
and you may be so pushed to
mm,
actually go and set up shop yourself. But what you'll miss out are those strong foundation skills which you're able to get with that expert.
absolutely.
And that
Mm,
is what people tend to forget, because everyone, when they come out of B school or they pass out of engineering school, what they think, or a lot of these higher education institutes come up with this attitude, or come up with this thought or this feeling कि हम दुनिया बदल देंगे. But they don't realize that the batch before them thought the same, and the 20 batches before them thought the same, and everyone in the market are people who are thinking the same, but they have different years of experience,
absolutely. Beautifully articulated. True,
right?
true.
And in your career, if you have all of these things in place, imagine, you're on a sailboat.
Mm,
You have your destination in place. You have a nice sailboat. But understand, when you're in this journey, there can be a lot of headwinds and tailwinds which affect your career,
I know, I know. Very
right?
true, very true.
So for example, if you're in this line, like
Mm,
the IT boom happened, if that's a desired skill set, you're in demand, you will quickly grow up. And the
mm,
same thing may happen, that there are certain headwinds which prevent you from going forward. You worked up your life to get into a particular position, the person retires, and then management suddenly decides a different
mm,
strategy, and that position is no longer there. It's no longer up for grabs.
mm,
So
mm,
understand that you need to do what you need to do, but
mm,
you need to also appreciate and acknowledge
mm.
these various influences. A leader
Yeah,
is a very strong influence.
yeah.
Your ability to participate or find yourself in the right place,
Mm,
because participating in what's known as, and we will discuss this as we go, and I'd like to take this
yeah,
in details, the concept of learning cycles.
true.
Getting the opportunity to work on big projects and seeing them from the beginning to the end. These
Mm,
are the things which can significantly push you up your career.
Very true. Very, very true. Very
right?
true.
So for me, a catalyst would be a strong mentor, a
Oh,
strong guide, and a strong supervisor. And I say these three things because all of them have different roles.
oh, beautiful. That's a very nice way of saying that. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. You can't just loosely use these words.
Correct.
Very true. Very true. I think what you said was very powerful in one way that you did not say that catalysts are only human beings. You also said the non-human environmental elements also play a very significant role of being a catalyst, right? And we many times ignore that.
So case in point, my whole interaction and if you take my example, when I became the youth ambassador, when I started working
Hmm.
with the United Nations, what changed?
Hmm.
What helped give me that trust? Did I know that was what I wanted to do?
Yeah.
Did I know how it's going to take me? There are various leaders, various people, various teachers I learned from who
Correct.
helped.
Yeah. Yeah. Your visit to Agra itself was a catalyst role. That city can be called a catalyst for you in your life in a way.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest catalysts in my life is my father, because of the kind of values he's put into me, because of the kind of things he's encouraged me to do, pushed me out of my comfort zone, and he said, son, if you want to be different, you got to do things differently,
True.
right? If you
True.
do the same thing, and it's something he likes to say, that is absolute insanity to do the same thing again and again and expect a different outcome.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So he's been one of the bigger catalysts in my life. One of my bosses, Amaya, he most definitely has been instrumental in helping shaping me in my formative years. Of course, at that point in time, I would think of him as a very hard uh, nut to crack. It was very stressful, but the kind of professional I am today, and if something is to leave my desk, it ought to be perfect. Wouldn't have been there at an earlier stage if it wasn't for him. And you tend to realize this later.
Very much. Always it happens.
Correct. And this book definitely helps you on that journey. You start realizing things which are there, which you're not aware of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very nice of you to have taken the name of your earlier boss and given him the recognition. It's so important, right? This is also an example for all the young leaders listening to you, Frederick, that do not forget people who have played a significant catalyst role in your life. Today, what you are because of them. They would have done a very small job, but that infinitesimally small that it looks like, you never know, can expand you into what you want to become in life. Right? You never know that. Very true. Very, very true. Beautiful. That takes me to the a powerful model that I want to talk about. And this is my all-time favorite in this particular book. I'm not going to expand this, but I'm going to ask
Yeah,
you to
yeah,
explain for
yeah,
the
yeah.
audience the TMRR model that he talks about. I thought this was beautifully presented by Molly.
Absolutely.
And,
And
and when I read it in the book, I want to call it out that I read it 3, 4 times back and forth. And I said, let me, I wrote it, and I normally use a drawing book kind of a notebook to write because I do a lot of mind mapping. I don't use a small diaries. Isma, I wrote it and I started putting my current entrepreneurial journey around it and said, how does this model sit in my life? And it just sat and it gave me so much of perspectives. Tell us a little about this and how should young leaders use it? Let's hear it.
all right. So first and foremost, I'll expand it for folks who don't know TMR. So target, measure, review, and reflect. Very simple. If you look at it that way, it's not something new. Everyone says, you first need to have a target, have clarity on goal. There are a lot of authors who talk about that. A lot of people tell career clarity, goal. This what's important. Second, you got to have measurable outcomes. You got to
Mm,
measure, you got to put milestones. Not new, right? And third, you got to review what you're doing to get there. These three things are not new, right? But the most important thing Molly touched upon is the fourth tool, which is reflection. The
beautiful.
most underutilized R, or the
Mm,
R which is absolutely forgotten by the world or most people,
yeah.
is reflection. I just made a quotation before of
Mm,
doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different outcome. That is exactly, it falls very well with this uh, fourth R of reflection, because you need to reflect what
mm,
you are doing today. What have you done over the last 1 week? What have you
mm,
done over the last 1 month? If it is taking you in the right direction, because if it's not,
mm. Reflect.
then and
Sit,
if you
pause,
and if you are
think.
expecting that you're going to go somewhere else, then boss, you're insane,
Yeah.
right? Because
True.
if something's not working, you need to address it. It's not about setting this goal that at 60, people have this goal. I want to retire at 45. Great. What are the milestones? Some people even have those milestones. Great.
Yeah.
Some people even review. Abhi maine ye kiya, I need to do this.
Hmm.
What people fail to do is reflect. What
Reflect.
you're doing today. Because you see, if now I'm going to take this example.
Yeah.
If you're if you're if you're a cricketer,
Hmm.
you get out of the pitch, and if your thought process is, I got to win the game, you're going to go with a lot of stress. You know why? If I don't win the game, we won't get to the finals. Think it's a semi-final match.
Yeah.
You're not going to perform. But if you go out there and you play each ball on its merit,
Hmm.
and I'm going to deal with each ball at a time, the probability of you winning, the probability is much higher because stress levels are low.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're taking smaller steps. You're reflecting. Okay, now where we are. How do I change my strategy? What am I doing?
Hmm.
Instead of just going out there, I need to win, I need to win, I need to win. You need to put in that effort and you need to review. Right? Muhammad Ali didn't become Muhammad Ali only by saying, he would go and say, I'm the greatest, I'm the champion, I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. He didn't win only by chanting this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? He understood, if even if I'm fighting heavyweights, what is something they don't have? Speed, agility,
Hmm.
you know, move like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Yeah.
That was his USP. He was fighting heavyweights, but he was moving fast.
Hmm.
He was understanding. He reflected what I need to do to win.
True. Play on his own strengths. True.
So you got to put that into practice, and see how you're moving towards your goal. And it's a very strong model, simple model. A lot of things which you know about, but you haven't put into place. But this one thing about reflection is the key.
Absolutely. I think you beautifully tied this with the Muhammad Ali example, Frederick, because it's just making me think when you do the TMR and then do the last R by investing good amount of time, it helps you to figure out what is your core competency that you want to really play on. And this very powerful book by Tony Shea, the Zappo story.
Hmm.
He very powerfully makes a very powerful statement saying, never outsource your core competency. And this reflection will help you to identify what is your core competency, right? If you go back to your own story, you were good in English, you were reading self-help book very early, that made you a speaker, you were on extempores and elocution and all that. That became a core competency that you kept building over time, and that's what you are today. And
Correct.
that's one reason why we see you on multiple platforms on LinkedIn, because you're able to articulate, you're able to make people think with your thought process, right? Which is not come yesterday. It's not come in 2020 COVID में मैंने एक साल घर में बैठ के मैंने इसको सीखा. It's built in you over a time. That's the core competency, right? I think your last hour is very powerful in giving that message. How can you get that core competency, right?
Absolutely.
Lovely. Very, very right. And you also made another very powerful point that look at the small steps, which also takes me to that. I'm sure you would have read the Atomic Habits of James Clear, right? He says
No,
very
no. I
Atomic Habit of James Clear.
okay. I haven't read that one.
Please read the book. Read the book. It's powerful. He says for all of us to succeed, we need to move from focusing on results to focusing on systems, which is nothing but step by step efforts.
Correct, correct. And even Molly says, don't focus on the promotion. Focus on
Ah,
self improvement. Focus on
ah,
improving yourself.
true,
How can I
true.
become a better version of myself? How do I become better from what I was yesterday?
Yeah, yeah.
Promotions will come.
You're right. You're right. The TMR is just nothing but the management words, but the last R is very individualistic, right? How much do I sit and
Absolutely,
reflect? Very nice,
absolutely.
beautifully articulated. Let's talk about the next one, which is very interesting, and this was very powerful, and all of us talk about this midlife crisis and 40 years हो गया है अभी आगे की 40 में क्या करने वाला हूँ ये सबके मन में this सवाल है and somebody makes a change and they immediately accuse हाँ he's going through midlife crisis वो बेचारा वहाँ बैठ के सोच रहा है कि what do I do different. Now, he says this, it's important that you need to win in the second half more than winning in the first half. What is the second half? And tell us any one example from your life, Frederick, that
All
can
right, all
help
right.
our leaders to understand कि ये second half होता क्या है?
Correct. So the whole idea and the concept is about delaying gratification.
Hmm.
You remember the first example I took where I told you about this artist who was working with
Yeah,
a
yeah.
singer. You see, because he stayed those 5 years over there,
Mm.
he built his foundational skills, right?
Mm.
He delayed his gratification,
Right.
because of which, when the time presents itself, he's able to make that leap.
Beautiful.
First half of your career is
Mm.
time to build on those foundation skills.
Mm.
Remember, you'll have a good boss,
Mm.
right? And your
Mm.
initial success is because of his guidance.
Correct.
It is in the second half of your career when you reach the position of being that boss.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have someone to guide you. You are going to have to guide people. And there's where you see people miss out,
Mm.
because people tend to hop jobs, jump here, for instant gratification, a couple of
Mm.
lakhs more, better designation.
Yeah.
If you have that opportunity, and if this scenario presents itself that a company has lost its head, they want you to join it, and it's the very few formative years of yours. I think it's a bigger mistake to leave your job and go and join as a head, because you're going to lose out on a lot.
I agree. I agree.
Right? So when this opportunity presents itself in the second half of your careers,
Mm.
that is when you need to capitalize. And if your
Mm.
foundations are strong, if your foundations are built,
Then you can.
if you have participated in many learning cycles from start to end,
Mm.
tomorrow when you're given the baton, you will be successful. And let me tell you, the kind of salary hikes, and the reason I'm using this is, younger folks, they focus
Yeah.
on, how can I jump salaries, are much significantly higher in the
Mm.
later half of your career as the
Yeah.
first half. Because imagine you start off your career, you let us presume 10 lakh rupees salary.
Mm.
A 30% hike on that would be 13 lakh salary.
Mm.
But if you're stuck in an organization
Mm.
for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you reach a particular position. The person who skipped 3 jobs may have reached 20 lakh rupees.
Mm.
You may reach, I'm using this example.
16 lakh, 17 lakh.
Yeah, you may reach 16 lakh rupees, but when the time comes where you're being allowed, or when you take charge and that opportunity presents itself, you will jump multifold. Your next job probably will be 30 lakhs, 45 lakhs,
True.
60 lakhs, whereas this guy will move from 20 to 24, 25, 27, and then he will plateau,
Mm.
because he has not been building his foundation. His learning has been linear while yours has been exponential, because if you've been in an organization for a good amount of time, and in these processes generally, you would have learned from your mistakes.
Mm. Mm. Right.
A simple example is suppose, and I share this with a lot of folks. Imagine two pen companies,
Mm.
one is a Parker, one is Link.
Mm.
In the development product stage, there are 5 stages.
Mm.
Two people worked in Link for 2 years together. One left Link in the third
Mm.
year, joined Parker, third, fourth, and fifth year joined Parker.
Mm.
The gentleman in Link stayed on, saw all 5 years or all 5 stages of the cycle. 5 years, 7 years, 8 years hence. Who do you think has better experience? I'll throw another example. Two individuals. One stayed in the same location,
Mm.
same company for
Mm.
7, 8 years. Another
Mm.
person, different locations, different companies, 7, 8 years. Yes, of course, different locations, different products adds a variety,
Mm.
right? But the skill this one person has of solving problems, because he stuck to the same organization,
Mm.
because his learning has been exponential, is
Mm.
irreplaceable. You can replace a knowledge of the city and some experience, different products, those are easily replaceable.
Mm.
But when you stick to the same organization, and think about this,
Yeah.
you have to sell a product, right? You join in the beginning, you get the low hanging fruit, right? Once that's done, what you going to do? You're in the same location, same clients, you will have to go to the mid hanging fruit, and then finally to the top hanging fruit. You're
Mm.
developing your skill to deal with the top hanging fruit, and there's this other gentleman who every 2 years keeps jumping and is
Yeah.
always getting the lower hanging fruit.
Low hanging
which
fruit.
is a better which is a better skill to have? The experience
Definitely.
of getting the lower hanging fruit in 5 cities, or
Mm.
dealing, or having the ability or the skill set to deal with the higher hanging fruit.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that is what you build. So when the opportunity presents itself to both these individuals in the second half of their career, who do you think is going to be a better performer? Who do you think is going to grow? Who do you think is going to who do you think is going to lead the market?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is what being successful in the second half of your career is all about. It's about delaying gratification, investing in yourself, ensuring you solidify your foundation, so when you
And then
have that
harvest in the
opportunity.
second half.
Absolutely, because your career is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you need to peak. You've heard about the tortoise and the hare story.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
need to peak in the last round of the marathon,
Mm,
not in the first round and tire yourself.
I know. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. This you're so right. It's just sad. I don't know if people are going to sound as, you know, coloring them or shading them, but as seasoned leaders, both of us with 20 plus years of experience, I think there's a lot of urgency in the young minds today than what we were far settled, I think. Though we were also aspirational to do something in life. These boys and girls are also, but they seem to be more a sense of urgency. I don't know how to arrest that. I think this reading this book could probably help them to think, reflect, and arrest that urgency.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's all about FOMO, fear of missing out, and
Mm,
the fact that if you look at how society has progressed, and if you look at 3 generations back and 2 generations back, and even in the last generation, people work to make a living,
yeah.
right? That was the concept of work-life balance.
Mm,
Unfortunately, that seeped into today, because today society has evolved. Wealth has passed on from one generation to another, which
mm,
allows you the luxury to make these choices.
absolutely.
And when you are presented with too much luxury, and when you have too much choice, that is when you can get confused and take the wrong decisions,
Sure.
right? So to have that calmness, to have that clarity of thought process, and to have that understanding of trying to see the big picture, or to see what happens in the long run,
Yeah.
that's what's ultimate. And you asked me about my example, so I'm going to share exactly TMRR what I've done.
Mm,
And what's my example. Of course, things can change. I see myself retiring out of a position where I'm working with the top educational institutes in the world, helping them bridge this gap between employability and academia, right? In order to do that at, let's say, 55, let's be a little realistic. Our forefathers were living up until 70, 75, 80. Our generation, with the kind of lifestyles we have, the kind of stress, we're going to get burnt out earlier. So you got to understand those milestones, etc. So let's say 55 is what I want to do, because then I want to relax. I want to continue activities which will stimulate my brain, and continue maybe as a professor in or doing research, or maybe a consultant.
mm,
45 to 55, I want to be dealing with these organizations, with these institutes, maybe head
mm,
one of the leading business schools in the world. In order to do that at 45, I should have a good 20 years of corporate experience,
sure.
10, 15 years leading leading the function. I should also have a PhD in this space,
Mm,
right? Imagine if I have to start that at 45, where I'm probably at the prime of my career, the
mm,
responsibilities I have. Will I have the time to do a PhD,
never.
right? So the planning starts then when I started my PhD at 28. Why? Because I was at the mid managerial position.
Mm,
In my organization, the responsibilities which I have today, let's say it would have been 30, 40% of it, right? So understanding, seeing the end, and slowly, measuring and achieving it. So by the time I'm 45, I already have 2 papers which are published in Scopus. I would like to have 15 papers published in Scopus. I would like to have 20 years of corporate experience, 10, 12, 15 of which would be leading the function,
mm, 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 mm.
and then move into academics. Then move into administration, not academics.
Right, I get that.
Academics is the last 5 years. The next 10 years of administration and shaping the youth, shaping uh, the management professionals of our country. Because in 2039,
Mm,
India is going to have the largest working population in the world, overtaking China as well.
mm,
Right at that point in time, if our talent is developed and utilized, the potential is used in the right way, we can be the next talent catalog of the world. And
mm.
if not, we can be the next world sweatshop. So that's my vision. That's what I want to do. So you
Mm.
see the timeline.
Yeah, yeah. Your R is happening constantly from 20
Absolutely,
onwards.
absolutely.
Mm. Young minds, I want to pause for a couple of seconds here before I give the second question, because you can see in my face I'm thinking based on what Frederick just said. And I regret that probably I did not think as much he did. I could have done it in my first half of career. I would have been different in my second half. I think it's a powerful point for all of you guys. Wherever you are in your stage of career, and when you listen to this talk, I would want all of you to pause at this particular point when I post it on LinkedIn or YouTube. Re-listen to what he just said. This is powerful. If you have missed out 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, you have not lost it. You still can take a pause and do what Frederick did. Reflect of what do you want to do in the next 15 years hence, 20 years hence, and start sowing the seeds now by doing it the way it needs to be done. And I think this book can be the first step towards you reaching that. Thank you so much, Frederick. That was powerful. That was very, very powerful. It just helps the young minds to think. And I'm hoping that many would think after listening to you. Made tremendous sense. Tremendous sense. This is what is winning in the second half is all about investing in first half and then harvesting in the second half.
Absolutely.
Yeah, lovely.
And Rajiv, forgive me for sounding a little promotional, but the second step would be to read my book.
Oh yes, absolutely. No, no, please, please, yes. Anything that you have done, as long as it's coming in a value for people. Beautiful, beautiful, superb. I'm going to take the image of your book, and when I post it on LinkedIn, I'm going to add that and post it. Right. So I'll come back to you for the image of the book.
Thank
All
you.
right. Superb. So let's go to the next one, which is very linked to what you said. You say, I'm going to read this. One of the key advice that the author is giving to young leaders is longevity and the decision to quit in their life with organization. He says this is very, very important. And you pretty much spoke about this earlier. So spend a little time on this. How do they help themselves when they are in the stage of should I quit? Should I not quit? Should I quit? Should I not quit?
Correct. And this is, I think this is one of the most helpful parts of the book for me as well, because I've used this guide, I've used this to explain to a lot of people, and when I'm doing career discussions with a lot of folks, to help them understand there are only two reasons why you should quit a company. One is, which you realize immediately in the first few months, there's a misfit. It could be a culture misfit, it could be a job misfit, it could be a location misfit as well. Right?
Why can't it be a boss misfit?
See, I would not like, see, boss misfit would somewhere fall into culture, because at the end of the day there's a subculture of the team also when there's a boss.
I agree.
So if you come to know this, you can take your decision and you move, no problem, within 1.5 year, 2 years, okay.
Yeah.
Because you realize by then,
yeah.
You want to give it a shot, you want to try, you want to explore more. 1.5 years, okay.
No point in dragging.
No point in dragging. And in that case, I say quick death is better.
Yeah.
Right? The second reason for quitting should be only and only if the learning has stopped. If you're not getting enough learning cycles, and no other reason. Right? And now the third point, the decision to quit your job has to be different and separate from the decision to join another company.
Lovely.
Right? And I use this example, and it works a lot with younger folks, that you don't divorce your wife because you've met someone pretty. Right? If you do divorce your wife, it is because of issues in your relationship, and that decision has to come first. Right? Like that, you're married to your job. You don't quit your job because you find this job outside and it was a good opportunity, because people say this and I'm surprised, why you quit your job? Oh, I got a good opportunity, a good chance. So I tell them, think about this. If you meet a pretty girl or a girl or a boy, whoever it was, of your dreams, would you leave a 10 or 15 year marriage just because you met this person? So understand, there are two separate decisions. So if you're not ready to accept this when it comes to personal relationships, then how are you ready to accept this response when it comes to a job? Why did you shift? I just got a better opportunity.
Lovely.
Right? Don't accept this answer. The only reason to quit is if you feel the learning has stopped. And if you've decided to quit, Fine. Decision one. Now, just because you've decided to quit, it doesn't mean you join the next company that comes.
Mm.
It can be jumping from the frying pan into the fire.
Mm.
And my recommendation is you sit with a pen and paper,
Mm.
because people tend to do this. You know, the job which is in front of you, you look at what you're getting there
Mm.
versus what you're not getting in this job,
Right.
and then you'll jump there. And when
Mm.
you jump there, you'll start seeing what you're not getting there, which you are getting in your previous job. And in your second job, you're not very happy. And then you'll end up going to the third job. So you'll say when people leave their first job and go to the second job, generally it can happen that the second job shift is even shorter and they move to the third job.
Okay.
And it strikes them that, you know what, you can't get 100% of what you want.
Mm.
You can get something very close to that,
Mm.
but like marriage,
Mm.
treat your career with the same respect in terms of the relationship you would give,
Yeah.
and choose who you'd like to spend that time with. Sometime alone is okay.
Mm.
Sometime with your current organization. Now the learning cannot stop like yesterday. The learning stopped and I decided today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would realize that the learning is coming to an end, right? You
Mm.
would see that maybe in the next 1 year, 1.5 years, I'm not going to grow after that, beyond that. So start looking today. Find something good. Go to 40, 50 interviews.
Mm.
Understand, it's not them who's only looking at you, it's you also who are looking at them. Look at your employer. Find a good boss to work with. Find a
True.
good culture to work with.
True.
Find those organizations where good talent are flocking to, but most importantly, good talent is also staying.
Staying. Yeah.
Somewhere behind the scene, there are good bosses pulling the strings.
Mm. Beautifully said. Very true.
Right?
Very
So
true.
look at those things. Invest in your career. And I'm talking about investing in time. I'm not talking about just developing skill.
Yeah.
Thinking. I was on one of these talks the other day, and I was talking about my career experience when in my first interview on campus, and that was after half the batch gets placed, and I'm
Mm.
applying for a HR role. And this gentleman who was a sales guy who became an HR manager, he was giving me a spot offer, and he was saying join marketing. It was a good package. Honestly, the package was more than what I started with in my first job. It was more than what I started with, but I was ready to say no and say I'd respectfully like to decline. If you're offering me a role in HR, so
Mm.
be it. And she asked me, the package was higher. He was telling you that you're good at sales. He was appreciating your skill. It's such a difficult decision to say no. And
Mm.
my answer to her was no, it's not a difficult decision. I asked her, where do you stay? She says, I stay at MP. I said, you have a second class train ticket to MP, right? You go to the station and somebody comes and tells you, hey, sorry, your train is not confirmed. You'll have to
Mm.
sit in the general compartment and go to MP,
Mm.
right? That's one option. The other option, the train going to Bangalore is empty. You can go and take the first class ticket. Will you take it? She said, no. I
Mm.
said, what if someone comes and says, hey, why are you taking the train here? I have a free flight ticket. Why don't you take it and go to Delhi? Will you take it?
Mm.
She said, no. I said, what if someone comes and gives you a seat on the spacecraft going to the moon? Would you take it? She says, no. I said, why? She said, because I want to go home. I said, that's the same way you got to look at your goal. I want to go there.
Destination is fixed.
I don't want the easy way out. I want the only way which is taking me in that direction, if it means going on a bullock cart for some time. Because like I said, there can be certain headwinds and tailwinds in your career.
Very true. Very true.
So be it, but you move in that direction. Don't quit because it's easier.
Mm.
Don't sacrifice that, because that is when people have midlife crisis, when they realize they've gone so far in the wrong direction. Imagine you get to a railway station and you took that train to Bangalore. Only halfway you realize that shit, I'm on the wrong place. Now to come back to go to MP, how much trouble are you going to have?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very
And then
good.
there's a question that do I have to start from the beginning?
Mm.
And then you're not content with life.
The search is just happening all over. It's just a monkey jumping all over. Yeah.
Absolutely. So just have that goal in mind. If you want to go to Calcutta, you go to Calcutta, or you go in any train taking you to Calcutta. Like if you're sitting in Delhi,
True.
you go to Ranchi because that's on the way to Calcutta. Maybe it's drifting away. You may get on the train to Orissa also because it's almost going to Calcutta. You don't get on a train to Chennai, or you
Mm.
don't get on a flight to the US just
Yeah.
because it's better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have that clarity in your mind, decisions become so easy. Questions aren't tough. Question or the questions may be tough, but the answers are very easy. It is
Very
you
true.
who make the answers tough.
Very true. And also not to miss the point that you enjoy the journey more, right? Because you're
It's
loving
all about
it.
it's all about the journey, because your career is not the end.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's not where you
I
reach. It's not where you reach
yeah,
when you retire.
true, true. So as you said, I'm just imagining you enjoy the bullock cart ride that you said because the bullock cart may be dangling, dangling everywhere, but you still enjoy that ride because that's what you wanted to do. And so much of learning in that delayed gratification that you spoke about earlier is I mean, there's no parallel to it, isn't it?
Every experience has a learning, and they make good stories to share.
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah. Lovely one. Yeah. Very, very lovely. I think decision to quit should not be looking at that pretty thing outside and leaving your family and marriage and jumping off. Idiotic it could sound sometimes when you look at it. I think a wise decision is to work it out and stay where you are and see what you can
Yes.
do. Unless the powerful point that you made is the next one is going to give you a second level of learning opportunity and take you closer to your destination that you want to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then
If that is the
absolutely
case,
do that.
why not?
Yeah,
I'm not saying don't be open to opportunities, but weigh them in.
very, very, very right. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Super. I'm going to ask you the last but one question. And you spoke about your father, and I'm just remembering the man there, and all my respects to him from here because my father, all belong to that generation who think very differently, whom delayed gratification was one of the biggest values in life. And that's why they were far more peaceful within themselves, they're far more calmer within themselves, and they could spread that weather around of calmness and peace as against the so-called run and rush that is happening, right? Why is values as a catalyst so important? That brings me to the next question that Molly is talking about.
So let me put it this way. Uh, Imagine you're the CEO of a or a company. You're a leader,
Mm,
right? But a leader is not someone, or you don't become a leader by just sitting behind a desk.
mm,
You become a leader when you have a good number of followers. You become a leader when you're able to communicate a message clearly,
mm,
when people understand your message, where people see you live what you do, or live what you say. For example, there were so many revolutionaries, and of course, it's going to be a point of debate. But if you look at Mahatma Gandhi, it is accepted that he was an exceptional leader.
mm,
Why? Because of his thought process. He did what he said:
mm,
frugality, simple living, honesty. See, as an individual, he may not have had a very happy life,
mm.
right?
Yeah,
He may not have been a very great father, but he sacrificed that to be the father of the nation.
yeah, yeah.
You see, values play a very important role in developing followers, and you're only as good a leader as the values you have and the level of influence you have on those followers.
Right, right.
Ethics, morality, values.
Very true.
These these are these are what differentiates one leader from another, and it's very important to actually live out those values.
Mm,
It is not what you say, it is what you do that communicates who
yeah,
you
yeah,
are, right? So values are very, very important.
right. And I think what he says as a catalyst. So as a leader, when you're going to play the role of a catalyst, only when your value system is visible to the environment outside through your behaviors and your I'll just leave it as behaviors. Only then they'll see you and look at you as a catalyst. वरना they आपके पास आएंगे भी नहीं वो.
Absolutely.
बोलता कुछ है
it is
करता
it is
कुछ है, that is
it
going to
is
play the role of a catalyst for me.
see, thought put into action,
Yeah.
right? That is what is the driving factor.
Mm,
Thinking about things is not good enough. If you talk about, this is what is right, this is what is wrong, and you practice the opposite, people will call you a hypocrite, not a leader,
yeah. Very
right?
true. Very
so
true.
so you got to walk the talk. It's not something new, but values,
Yeah.
integrity, these are very important, because it is these factors which can be the stark differentiator
Yeah. Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in the later half of your careers.
Very true. Very, very true. Very true. One big lesson I had from this book, Frederick, is as I read the book and finished it, one very powerful learning came. And because I'm a leadership facilitator and coach and keep talking about, you can't become a catalyst. People should see you as a catalyst. The
Correct.
example of the boss that you took is because You see him as a catalyst. He never wanted to call himself a catalyst from your mouth.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
it's not an easy position that you can get, right? You need to earn it. And I think this values as a catalyst that Mauli beautifully connected these two together is so important, because if people see those values that you rightly said you're living in your action, then they will, Frederick is a catalyst for me in my career. But now they would never say that. Very, 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 very true. That brings me to the last question. I mean, I would love to keep talking, but the format allows me this much of time. All these that you have done, Frederick, and we spoke a lot about your journey out of this forum earlier, and thanks for sharing that so well. What are two big advices you would want to give the young leaders here on this platform? This could be a squeeze of all the years of experience that you have in a glass that you want to give, or it could be a combination of this book. I leave it to you. But two razor sharp advices.
Uh, the first advice I'd like to give is to have your two G's always in mind. One is goal and the other is God. So, like a moral compass, you need to have that compass which points you in the right direction, not only towards what you want to achieve in life, but keeping your values, keeping spirituality, keeping ethics, keeping integrity, keeping all of these things also in check. So, these two things. And the second, of course, I'd like to blend a lot and sum up the learnings, or few of the learnings uh, from this book, is one, delay gratification, right? Two, get out of this thought process, or get rid of this misconception that you are in control of your career completely,
Hmm.
right? Because understand and try to accept there's so many things which can affect you,
Yeah.
right? And stop looking in it only from what's in it for me, short term.
Hmm.
Start looking at it long term,
Right.
right? And when it comes to quitting, right, the decision to quit has to be different, and has to be first, and then the decision to join another company. They should be two separate decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Frederick. That was beautifully articulated and summed up. It was a lovely, lovely conversation. Thank you for bringing this book alive. And you're an animated speaker, so it's interesting to listen to you. And you definitely make the listener think. And you made me think. There are two things that you spoke about which I never thought from this angle in the book. I'm going to pick up a separate call with you and have a longer chat on this. I made a note of this. I'm going to talk about this to you separately. That's a great learning for me as well. Thank you for accepting the invitation and coming on this event and talking. I thoroughly enjoyed this 46, 47 minutes of conversation. I hope you had a good time.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure. Even I'd like, honestly speaking, there's so much we can talk about, there's so many learnings, but I think another important lesson is succinctness, and trying to communicate what you have to in a definite period of time. So I think we summed up the discussion very well. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for having me.
Pleasure. Look forward to see you soon. Till then, be the catalyst that you are.
Cheers. Thank you. God bless.
God bless. Bye.